guest today is Dr. Peter Diamandis. Peter has a long and storied history at the center of incredible technological innovation. He's been an entrepreneur many times, having founded XPRIZE, International Space University, Singularity University, Cellularity, and more. He's an accomplished author, having written the New York Times bestsellers Abundance, The Future is Better Than You Think, and Bold, How to Go Big, Create Wealth, and Impact the World. Peter is an extraordinary human and someone who is constantly pushing himself and those around him to think bigger and to have a greater impact. Whether that's working with Elon Musk to launch a $100 million carbon capture XPRIZE, which they did last year, or helping guide his Abundance 360 members to craft their massively transformative purposes. Peter is constantly pushing us to reimagine ourselves and what we're capable of, and to work towards creating a more abundant and just world for all. Peter has been a great friend and supporter of my work at Singularity and now at KittyHawk, and it's with great gratitude and much respect and love that I welcome him here today. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. It's terrific to have our LPs, the CEOs of our portfolio companies, our advisors, and a bunch of just good friends of KittyHawk joining us today. Peter, it is terrific to have you here, my friend. Again, so grateful for your time, your friendship, and your support of KittyHawk. And it's just really such a treat to have you here today.
Hey, Happy New Year, buddy. It's great to be here. And I know I've got a lot of friends watching us, so Happy New Year to everybody. And I'm just a fan of yours, Will. So anytime we get a chance to play together, it's a good day.
Thank you, my friend. Feel the same way. Always, always love it. And I'll echo your Happy New Year to everybody. So I had the great pleasure of getting to spend about a week with you on the Platinum Longevity Learning Trip in September. And it was just a really extraordinary few days of getting to meet with folks like David Sinclair and Dean Kamen and George Church, and to hear from a bunch of entrepreneurs and technologists. It seems like this is an area that you're spending more and more time on. Obviously, we're both, I think, very, very passionate about, for many obvious reasons, what's happening there and its potential to impact humanity. And I thought maybe we could start off by just kind of talking a little bit about, what you're seeing there, what's getting you excited, why you're kind of seem to be spending kind of increasing amounts of your time focused on longevity.
Yeah, sure. And there's a lot going on. I think most of us have no clue how much is going on, and I'll discuss that in a moment. But I mean, I think there are a number of reasons that I have shifted my attention from where I used to be, which was 90% focused on commercial space, and Jeff and Elon are doing a great job there, to probably 80% focused on age reversal, longevity, health tech, and such. One reason is, as I get older and I love life, I want to live as long as I can. So, this idea that, you got 80 or 90 years, I absolutely, say that's not the case. And we'll talk about maybe what I think is possible from an age standpoint, from a longevity standpoint. The second thing is, I don't think there's a bigger business opportunity on the planet. You still can't take it with you. And at the end of the day, if you're able to offer individuals 20, 30, 40 or more healthy years in their life, I think that is a huge business opportunity. The third is, it's intellectually fascinating to me. So, those are the reasons that I'm spending more time. I've got 80% of my investments are in that space. I'm working on a $100 million age reversal XPRIZE. The companies I'm advising are in that arena. And the last 4 companies I've started have been in that arena. So yeah, I'm pretty all in right now.
You are all in. Yeah. I mean, and what's so extraordinary, it's not just lifespan that we're talking about. It really is health span and extending that. And, David Sinclair just blew my mind a couple times during the trip. And when he was talking about kind of the work around the Yamanaka factors and how with his work, he is able to actually, it's not even just stopping aging and halting it in its place. It's really reversing aging. And maybe you could talk a little bit about what's happening there.
Let me give everybody the frame of why we age and why we might not need to. because it's a fascinating thing. And I think I can explain it in a way that is a great takeaway. I've just finished writing a book with Tony Robbins called Life Force that's coming out February the 8th, I believe. That is a tour de force of everything around longevity, aging, vitality, tech around diseases and curing diseases and such. So here's a situation. Here's a question for you. Do we have the same genome at birth, at age 20, at age 50, at age 80 plus? And it's a rhetorical question. The answer is yes. We have the exact same genetics that from start to finish, save for a few mutations that occur from free radicals or flying at 48,000 feet. And so the question is, if we've got the same genome, why don't you look the same? Why do you actually age? Why aren't you, in your peak 23-year-old physiology? And the answer is it's not, our genome. It's specifically which genes are turned on and which genes are turned off. And as we age, our epigenome, epi meaning above, starts to lose control over this. And as we get older, certain genes that should be off are on, and certain genes that should be on are off, and things start falling apart. And I can go into more detail about why that happens, but the point is David Sinclair, George Church, a number of other players are learning how do we actually reset our epigenome so that your genes that were on at, pick your ideal age, 25, are on, and the ones that were off at 25 are off. And we should really see a revitalization of our longevity. And this used to be a crazy idea, and now it's one of the hottest ideas that are attracting the best researchers, billions and billions in capital, tens of billions in capital. So super fun time to be alive.
Yeah, it was amazing. I think David's initial work is focused around, well, he's doing a bunch of different things, but spoke specifically about elderly mice, blind mice, and how he's able to use this technology essentially to kind of reset their eye cells to a juvenile state and restore vision for them, and thought that same factor should, the same mechanism basically should work for all sorts of different cells and for humans as well as mice.
Yeah, so they've just gone from just the visual retinal and optic nerve to demonstrating this age reversal, this rejuvenation in the heart of mice too. And George Church is doing this on dogs, and both of them see moving into humans, in the next 5-year time frame. In fact, I'm 2/3 funded to do $100 million age reversal prize. My anchor and benefactor is Chip Wilson from Lululemon, who's a dear friend, and we're looking at an XPRIZE that you'll win, a large chunk of this $100 million if you're able to demonstrate reversing the human age by 20 years, or a quarter of the accepted life expectancy now. So you reach 60, you do this treatment, that the treatment needs to be less than a year and reverses you 20 years and in a repeatable fashion. So I'm excited about it. I'm excited about the thousands of labs out there that I think are going to be attacking this problem this decade.
And is that up and running right now?
It isn't launched yet. I still need to raise the last $20 million of prize. I'm committed, $5 million to this. Anybody who's interested, you can just reach me at peter@xprize.org. The benefits of this are going to be to the benefactors, early access to the treatments, opportunities to invest in the companies pursuing this, as well as really meeting on an annual basis with these teams. And, from my perspective, again, there's no bigger business. I know that's why KittyHawk is investing in the health and health tech and space. So, yeah.
One of the things that also came across, as I've been kind of spending time in this space and on their trip, is just how many different ways people are addressing the problem. And, whether it's along what David Sinclair is working on, or people working on the microbiome, do you have a perspective? do you think there's going to ultimately be kind of one solution, or that we're going to, a Levion going after capillary development? And I thought that was just fascinating that as you get older, the branches of your capillaries kind of, are kind of shrink or kind of come back in a company that's working basically on the premise of if you can increase the number of capillaries and blood vessels in your body, that you get increased blood flow. I think has all sorts of benefits in helping the body just kind of work as it should and as it did in a younger state. So do you think it's going to be one solution that's going to address it all, or do you think there's going to be lots of different takes on addressing longevity?
So it's a good question. I think that there are lots of approaches that people are taking right now, for sure. And these include stem cells, exosomes, Wnt pathway manipulations, going after senile cells with senolytic medicines. I think the approach that David and George are working on, as well as other researchers, is sort of the master switch of, can we just turn back the epigenome to a younger state that then impacts everything from there. And as with any field, I think you're going to have hundreds of companies pursuing this and impacting it from different directions. And that's what makes it, so exciting. People are beginning to recognize aging as a disease, and that can be slowed, stopped, and perhaps reversed. If you just accept aging as there's nothing you can do about it, then why would you work on it? But now the belief is that no, there is something we can do about it. And while we may not, people may not believe we can get to hundreds of years, which I do believe we can do, at a minimum, why not have great vitality at 100 or 120 as compared to being in a wheelchair drooling? So it's health span, if you would. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that was interesting to me that surfaced is this notion of the longevity escape velocity, I think. And can you maybe talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So it's a great mental exercise to think about the following. Today, science is extending your lifespan by about a quarter of a year every year. So every 4 years, your life expectancy is increasing by a year because of additional breakthroughs in fighting cancer, cardiovascular disease, neurodegenerative disease. There's a point in the future in which science has the potential to extend your life for every year that you're alive, extend your life for more than a year. And if you do that, it's divergent, and it's, you basically are living for as long as you want. And it's a concept called longevity escape velocity. Now, Ray Kurzweil had said that when I spoke to him last at about 12 years, his prediction. Aubrey de Grey was at 15 to 20 years, and it was incredibly interesting when I asked George Church about it, who's I consider a much more conservative, deep scientist in this area. He placed it in the next 10 to 20 year time frame as well. Which, if that's true, all of our objectives are specifically to stay as healthy as we can, as long as we can, to intercept these technologies. Like I like to say, don't die from something stupid in the interim when longevity escape velocity is around the corner.
So, one thing I want to touch on also is just kind of timing around some of this stuff, and how, far off do you think it is before we start to see these solutions? I mean, Sinclair was talking about how he's seeing people kind of turning back their epigenetic clock by multiple years. They're turning back kind of the markers in their blood work by, sometimes more than a decade with some of the supplements and things that they're taking. We could talk about supplements and some of the things that, in just a minute. But in terms of some of these other solutions, do you think are we 5 years away from them being available? Is it still kind of 10 plus years? Does it happen here in the States, or is it abroad first?
Yeah, so a lot of these, again, first, you have to realize that the idea of age reversal, or the idea that that we can slow aging or stop aging is a relatively new idea. It's been obviously the fountain of youth and people's pursuit of that has been around for hundreds or thousands of years. But from a medical scientific perspective, it's something that people are just beginning to identify as, we can make a dent there. And so for that reason, we're just now beginning to see regulatory structures allow for this. It was, the idea that aging as a root cause of disease, that the number one correlate with all diseases is your age. If you could slow it or reverse it, you reduce aging. That's relatively new. And so the FDA, the NIH, all of these regulatory organizations are just now beginning to, create designations around that. So there's a number of approaches. One is using stem cells. It's not allowed in the US right now. And so people go outside the US to the Caribbean, Antigua, Mexico, Costa Rica, Panama to get stem cell treatments. Exosomes are allowed. But there's this whole category of investigational new drugs, an IND. And so one of my companies, Cellularity, that's one of the largest cellular manufacturing companies on the planet. We mine the cells coming out of the placenta, T cells, natural killer cells, stem cells, exosomes. We are now aggressively pursuing INDs to use these placental stem cells for loss of muscle or for revitalization, because we do know as you age, your stem cell population can be reduced by 100-fold or 1,000-fold. And stem cells are the cells that are constantly revitalizing the tissues in your body. But then there are other things like fighting senile cells, senolytic medicines like quercetin dastinab or medicines like rapamycin. And these are all on the cutting edge. And so there are, again, INDs to support using these treatments. But we don't know the answers yet. And this is where the science is aggressively being pursued.
One of the things I also thought was interesting, so many people are concerned about, what happens, right, if we start to extend all these people's lives, like what is the impact on the planet? And there's a lot of concern about that. And I saw a stat that said for every year that we extend people's lives and they're able to productively contribute to the economy, it adds something like $36 trillion back to the economy. So what's interesting is there seems like there's just extraordinary opportunity from an investment perspective, but also extraordinary opportunity to kind of further grow the overall kind of economic pie.
Yeah, the study came out within the last year out of Oxford, Harvard, and London School of Business. And it said for every year that you extend the healthy age of the population, it's worth $38 trillion to the global economy. The other thing that is important to note is that the global population is rapidly shrinking. We don't have a population bomb. We have a population deflation going on, which was made worse by COVID. So 50 years ago, the average number of children per family globally was like 5.5. It's down to 2.4. The US, Japan, significant parts of Europe are all shrinking.
China.
And so China, as we are, there's going to be a massive labor shortage, not necessarily just from people not wanting to work, but from not having enough labor out there. So when I interviewed Elon back in April for our $100 million carbon removal XPRIZE, I asked him about that. And he said, yeah, he said, we're gonna have a giant whimper, and we're gonna need AI and robotics, and we're gonna need people to live and work longer. And you will work longer if you feel great about it. If you got the energy, the vitality, the drive. If it's painful, then you're not. So we really need, it's not just about lifespan, it's about health span, vitality span.
Right. It is such a just interesting time in human history right now, right? Things are changing so quickly. We talk a lot about the future of work and kind of giving the shrinking population and less people willing to do some of these more, manual labor related activities, and lots of activities. I mean, work is really changing, and having to allow AI to take those things on, or robotics to take those things on, are going to just be a critical part of being able to provide skills that we become, or services that we become so used to.
I note a couple of questions here. One from Andrew Fritz that says, "Can I speak about why the body is predispositioned to die?" And Andrew, it's a very simple answer. Uh, our bodies evolved for a very different world that we're living in today. Our bodies evolved for the savannas of Africa, call it 100,000 years ago to millions of years ago. And back then, before there was birth control, you'd go into puberty at age 13, and then you would literally have children by the age you were, 14. And by the time you were 28, your children were having children and you were a grandparent. Now, back then, when food was scarce, right, before McDonald's and Whole Foods were around, the worst thing you could do to perpetuate the species was to steal food from your grandchildren's mouths. The best thing you could do was die and give your bits back to the environment. So it's a very clear, evolutionary reason for that.
Peter, can you talk a little bit about kind of what you're doing now to kind of extend your health
Yeah,
span and your lifespan?
sure. And sorry for the glow behind me here, but uh,
Sunny Santa Monica.
sunny in
What?
Santa Monica, yes.
Yeah.
So I'm doing a number of things, and I think about this all the time. And it's real easy and simple. Uh, the very first thing, it's food, exercise, diet, mindset, and then some supplements, and then not dying from something stupid. Let me identify those one at a time. So on the food side, I don't eat before 1 or 2 p.m. I do intermittent fasting every day. I do my best to cut out all or the majority of all sugars in my diet. Sugar is a poison. Hate to say that. It is a inflammatory. It feeds cancer. So I'm not an angel, but I do my best to minimize my sugar intake and carb intake. Um, I am whole plants. I tend towards Mediterranean diet, as many salads and as much olive oil and fish as I can. So that's where I am on a dietary standpoint. I was vegan for a couple of years. I don't think for my genomics, and not everybody's the same, that you're best to go vegan. It depends on your genetic background as well.
Are you
Uh,
taking resveratrol or
yeah,
metformin
I
or any of
am.
those kind of?
Yeah, I take NMN, nicotinamide mononucleoside, which is a precursor to NAD in your body. I'll also supplement that with NR. I take metformin, a gram a day. Metformin reduces your blood glucose levels, um, and it has cancer protective elements. I supplement my testosterone. I mean, I'm at age 60 now, so those levels have dropped. I want to get them. It's really about hormone optimization versus replacement. And it varies again for person to person. Um, what else? There's a bunch of supplements that I take. And when the book comes out, when Life Force comes out, a lot of those will be in the book and on the website. Uh, I drink as much as I can, at least 2 liters of water per day. I'll use something like Athletic Greens to supplement that. And
Have you
let's
been
see.
tracking your biological age, or your,
Yeah, yeah. So
yeah,
I'm 60 and I'm at 49 uh,
49?
to 50, depending where I am.
And what do you
And
use to actually get those? Are you using Inside Tracker, or is there
yeah, so I
another
use Inside
Inside
Tracker, but
Tracker?
I also do it through Fountain Life,
Okay.
which uses the same technology. So I'm every on a quarterly basis. Exercise is important. Sitting is the new smoking. So get out, do your Zooms, do your conference calls while walking. get a walking desk. Dean Ornish bought me one of those, and I used to use it all the time in my XPRIZE office. I don't have room in the house for that right now. And then weights, I'll do, 2 or 3 times a week. I'll do a reasonably lightweight to medium weight workout. There's a direct correlation between muscle and longevity. Muscle mass is really important. Food, exercise, sleep. I prioritize sleep. I never did when I was in medical school. I used to think, I was proud of how little I could sleep.
Right.
And now I'm focused on 8 hours. So for me, sleep is about getting to bed early. So I'll typically get to bed by 9:30 and wake up at 5:30. And then I'll do a couple hours in the morning. Meditation is important for me from a mindset standpoint. My Stammet stack that I participate in is another part of that morning routine. What else can I say? So sleep, exercise, diet, mindset. First of all, there is a direct correlation. Optimists live longer. It's just true. The numbers are pretty specific. I think it's like an 8-year advantage. So mindset is really important. And living.
And there's lots of different types of mindsets. I mean, one of the things that,
I mean, for me, it's a life of gratitude, and we can talk about mindsets. I focus on an abundance mindset, exponential mindset, a purpose-driven mindset, a moonshot mindset, a longevity mindset. On the longevity mindset, if you realize how much is going on, you're going to want to keep yourself in much better health. So I built an AI engine called Future Scope, and it can create AI newsletters. And so I uploaded all of my writings, all my tweets, everything I'm doing into the Future Scope AI engine, and it generates something called Longevity Insider. So every day I get the top 15 articles that are the breakthroughs on age reversal, longevity, CRISPR, gene therapy, stem cells, regenerative medicine, all of those items. And it's amazing. And I look at this every day and it keeps me up to speed. It's free. I commend it to all of you. Just go to longevityinsider.org. You can sign up. You can unsubscribe whenever you want.
But get it every day and love it. Yeah, it's terrific.
So it just helps me like, that's interesting. If you believe that we're intercepting these longevity curves, then you're gonna treat yourself differently. The last thing is not dying from something stupid. And I think this is really important. All of us are optimists. We have no idea what's really going on inside our body. So there are 2 companies. One I started 8 years ago I co-founded 8 years ago called Human Longevity. And then more recently with Tony Robbins and Mark Benioff and Bill Kapp, George Shapiro, a number of individuals, a company called Fountain Life. And I go and I upload myself at Fountain Life every year. 150 gigabytes of data, full body MRI, brain vasculature, coronary CT, DEXA scan, genomics, blood omics. And the goal is to identify any disease at stage 0 and zap it at the beginning. We're all going to die from something, but you don't want to die for something stupid, like people who never go and examine themselves and they've got cancer they just don't know about until they end up at stage 4 in the ER. And so you want, like a wildfire, you want to zap it at the very beginning. And so every year I'll go to Fountain Life and upload myself in that regard.
Terrific. Peter, one thing I want to also touch on is exponential organizations. And I know there's a lot of people on this Zoom who have read that book, have been really, really influenced by it. I know you're a big part of the first book with Salim Ismail, and you two are getting ready to come out with a new version of that.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure.
And maybe for those who haven't read it, what kind of the high level is there?
Yeah. If you look at the companies that are crushing it historically, the SpaceXs, the Teslas, the Apples, the Googles, the pick your favorite companies, they're performing at least 10 times better financially, whatever performance figures you want, than old school companies. And there's a reason for this. And Salim did the research. We were supposed to co-author the first book. My other book, Bold, was coming out, so I couldn't put my name on the cover. So I wrote the forward and afterward, but we're writing Exponential Organizations 2, which we're calling the EXO playbook. And so we examine those companies and we give advice. If you're a startup, these are the attributes that you should be utilizing. Like how do you tap into the crowd to turn them into community? How do you use AI and algorithms? How do you create your virtual organization so that it uses the best social structured elements like Slack and others to enable conversations in small groups? And so the book does a deep dive into this and studies the companies, what elements they use. There are 10 attributes. The other thing is that all of these companies have what we call a massive transformative purpose, an MTP. So they're not just about making money, they're about changing the world in a very concrete fashion. So we talk about how do you develop an MTP for your company, for your startup, and then what are the moonshots you're going after? Where do you want to perform 10 times bigger, where your competitors are going 10% bigger?
Great. So with that, I know we've got a lot of folks who have questions for you. So why don't we switch into our Q&A section, and if there's extra time, I will lob in a couple additional questions for you. Great.
Perfect.
So awesome. So I know Stephen Patrick had one going back to our longevity question, which is, how do we know what the optimum genome setup is or should be? Is the information stored somewhere within us? How do we reset to optimum?
Yeah. So, hi, Stephen. David Sinclair's work leads him to believe that there is a early copy of the epigenome, that information is stored. So the work that he did was he gave in the mice where this has been demonstrated, he gave them 3 out of the 4 Yamanaka factors. So Dr. Yamanaka, who won the Nobel Prize for creating induced pluripotent stem cells, iPS cells. And these iPS cells, if you take a skin cell from your body and you give it these 4 specific factors, the Yamanaka factors, or the cells will revert back to their pluripotent state. They will de-differentiate from a skin cell to a pluripotent stem cell that could then be differentiated into skin, muscle, bone, nerve, whatever it might be. But David gave only 3 of the factors in a unique fashion, and it didn't bring the retinal cells back to pluripotent stem cells. It brought them back to a more youthful copy. And he doesn't yet know where that information of where to stop is stored, but it is consistently identified that it is stored because the cells get younger, but not too young. And so that is something which people are trying to figure out right now.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. It's going to be interesting to see how we can really dial that in. You know, can you really control how far it goes
Can I
back?
mention the work that Dean Kamen is doing? 1 second.
Of course.
Yeah. So one of the other things. So every year I bring 30 people in August and 30 people in September, and I do this longevity trip. I did it 2 years ago on the West Coast. This past August and September on the East Coast. We're going back to the West Coast. On the East Coast this year, we visited David Sinclair. I'm sorry, we visited Dean Kamen. And Dean, one of the most prolific and amazing innovators, inventors on the planet, over 1,500 patents, just an incredible human soul.
That was an unbelievable portion of the trip to get to see his home and meet with him and see the labs.
He built a facility called ARMI, the Advanced Regenerative Manufacturing Institute, funding from the Defense Department, who's trying to deal during warfare with all of these veterans who are significantly injured. Dean created, the Luke arm, which is a replacement mechanical arm. He created the iBot for people who lost mobility. They asked him, could you replace organs? And so the Army facility is built a machine that in one end comes your induced pluripotent stem cells. So grab a cell from you, reverse it back to a stem cell, put those cells in one end of the machine. Out the other end of the machine, 45 days later, comes a manufactured organ with your genetics. Crazy, right? So they've already demonstrated bone, ligament, bone segments. The next thing they'll demonstrate are pediatric hearts, then lungs, liver, kidneys. And it's an extraordinary idea that within this decade, we're going to have the ability to have replacement organs. And that just blows me away.
And Martine Rothblatt working on that as well, I think, for lungs,
Martine is a
right?
member of
Yeah.
Army, and she is taking a different approach. Her approach is we're going to, it turns out that pigs have organs pretty much the same size as humans. And she worked to edit the genome of a pig to make it more human-like, get rid of the pig antigens, get rid of the retroviruses, the endogenous viruses in the pig genome. And then once you've done that, you can then transplant the organs from a pig into a human and not have them rejected or have them rejected to a far less degree. So you create a sort of an infinite supply of organs and bacon.
Perfect. So Matthias Mosi, who early Singularity attendee,
Hello, Matthias.
yeah, amazing investor, had a question regarding full body MRIs and the notion of, is there a published paper showing that it is actually saving lives and beneficial to do this? His concern being sometimes people see something in there that turns out that they act upon that maybe turns out not to have been a big deal or puts them into jeopardy going through an operation that really wasn't necessary. How do you think about that?
Matthias, great question. And it used to be the case when the resolution was lower, when the AI algorithms to do the analysis were not present, and it was a human looking at it all the time, that there was a higher percentage of false positives that would then drive you to do a whole bunch of tests, potentially have surgery, and find out that there was nothing there. That's gone. It really is life-saving right now. You can look at, again, fountainlife.com or healthnucleus.com, Google Health Nucleus. And I think the data are on the website, but I go every year and I feel like I am exposed if I don't go. I haven't made the trip yet. I usually do it in January or February. And just, I feel like is there anything going on? No, I'm good for another year and I'll go and repeat it a year later.
Terrific. Any additional questions? People can jump in or raise your hand or write a question in the notes. Otherwise, I'll jump in. So Peter, maybe we can talk a little bit about XPRIZE, and for those who aren't familiar with it, just at the real high level, what it does, how you use this competition mechanism, and then we touched briefly on the age, the longevity XPRIZE and carbon capture. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about. I think people would be very interested to hear more about the Elon Musk carbon capture one in particular. I know I would.
Sure. So XPRIZE started, hard to believe, 27 years ago. We identify areas that are stuck where work isn't progressing. Either it's, nobody owns it or no one believes it's possible. And we will typically launch a prize where there's a certain amount of money that you can win, not for an idea, but to actually demonstrate and prove a solution. So we've launched about $300 million in XPRIZes, another $200 million plus are in development right now. And we are launching them both in space exploration, ocean exploration.
What do you think is the amplification of that, money that actually goes into the
measured
XPRIZE?
it. Yeah. So we typically, at a low point, at a minimum, we have 10 times the prize money spent to try and win it. So the $10 million Ansari XPRIZE had just over $100 million being spent to try and win it.
And ultimately turned into Virgin Galactic.
Ultimately turned to Virgin Galactic, but Elon and Jeff Bezos benefited significantly because we drove public excitement about it, drove regulatory reform in it, and really launched the private spaceflight industry with that. We've seen as high as 30 or 40 fold expenditures, and we've got prizes going on across the range. We have an Avatar XPRIZE going on right now, which is super cool. All Nippon Airways funded it. Can you build an avatar that at a distance I can occupy with VR goggles or a haptic suit, and I feel like I'm in the room with you, and the robot that you're speaking to, you feel like I'm in the room with you, right? So it's an experiential side of the equation. We've got one on out of Abu Dhabi to feed the next billion for cellular agriculture. I'm working on one right now that I'm super committed to, which is a wildfire XPRIZE. The way we fight wildfires today is pretty insane because it hasn't changed in 30 years. So just like identifying cancer early, what if you could detect a fire at ignition at the very beginning and then put it out in 10 minutes? So we're working on that XPRIZE. We're about halfway funded with that. We've got $101 million because Chip wanted it to be larger than Elon's prize. So it's $101 million. And we've raised about 90 out of the 125 million. We need 25 to run it. And this is to demonstrate repeatable age reversal of 20 years in humans. And you have to demonstrate it in multiple organ systems. And there's a whole bunch of ways to do the testing. So excited about that. Finally, answer your question about Carbon XPRIZE. Back last January, I reached out to Elon on text, and we tweeted back and forth around doing a large XPRIZE when he became the wealthiest human on the planet. And he said, "What do you have in mind?" I said, "Let's do a $100 million prize to get CO2 out of the atmosphere." And credit to him, he basically said yes a day later, and then assigned some of his engineers from Tesla and our team under Marcus Extravor and his foundation. And a month later, we had the prize. It was the fastest funded XPRIZE that we've ever seen.
That's terrific. Thank you. All right. Aaron Perlmutter has a question. Aaron?
Peter, thanks so much for this. It's been great. Since we moved off of healthcare and more into the other realms of technology, I wonder if you'd comment on anything in the space arena that you find particularly interesting. I know you're spending less time on that today, but anything that has piqued your interest presently?
Yeah, sure. No, I love space, and I hope to make my hundreds of millions of dollars in the health tech space and then come back and spend it in the space space. So, I'm a significant investor through my fund in relativity space, which is 3D printing rockets. I'm an investor advisor to Astra, that is built the smallest orbital rocket. It's public now as a company. And so the business models of 3D printing rockets, reusable rockets, Astra's vision of and he'll be one of my moonshot faculty at A360 this year. Can you manufacture a rocket that can go to orbit for under $1 million, and you as the customer, instead of paying $1 million or $5 million to go on a ride share, you own the entire ride. You can go whenever you want. And can you get the launch rate from 20 a year to 300 a year. So that's interesting. Other global orbital imaging, right? So that you're imaging the entire Earth continuously at under a meter resolution, so that you've got the ability to query anything. I think that's going to have massive implications. Manufacturing in low Earth orbit, for sure. They're trying to figure out exactly what you would manufacture that has higher value proposition than the cost. Ultimately, my passion is in asteroid mining. These asteroids are multi-trillion-dollar assets, and can we in fact extract first rocket fuel, hydrogen and oxygen, but eventually platinum group metal markets, platinum, palladium, osmium, iridium.
How far off is that, do you think?
The technology to do it exists today. It's going to be driven by the marketplace. And I think when, I'm a massive fan of what Elon has done with Starship, obviously, and it's game over for a lot of the other launch companies that are, the traditional government launch companies. But Starship, for it to operate to the moon and Mars, needs refueling. And so today, Elon's plans are launch a Starship that carries methane and oxygen, and then refuels another one, and then keep on bringing refueling, and then take the refueled one to go to the moon or go to Mars. In the conversations I had with him on the asteroid mining, he said, listen, if you can demonstrate oxygen at a lower cost and bring it from the planet, of course I would buy it. His feeling was it was too early, but I think the market is going to drive the demand for this, and I think we'll see demand before the end of the decade.
Do you have any plans to visit the moon or to visit Mars? Are you open and interested in that?
Yeah, I think when XPRIZE got won, I was focused on suborbital flight. That's sort of come and gone, and I think my next target is landing on the moon. When I do my zero-G parabolas on the zero-G airplane, my favorite parabolas are lunar parabolas. And just, the ability to walk or fly on the moon would be awesome. Yeah. So yeah, that's on my bucket list for sure.
Amazing. Thanks, Aaron, for your question. Any other questions there? Alex, I saw your question. I will follow up with you offline on some things. Asked about things that we can do basically personally around longevity to whether that's taking NMN. And I know it's coming out in your book, Peter. I also have a list from our longevity trip of some of the supplements that folks are taking, and happy to share that with folks. Great. So maybe one thing, we kind of hinted around this, but getting to your point around longevity mindset, would you mind sharing with people how old you think you are going to live to?
So when I was in medical school, I remember watching this television show on long-lived sea life. Turtles, whales, sharks. So the bowhead whale can do 200 years regularly. The Greenland shark does 400 or 500 years, and then sea turtles were like 400 or 500, maybe 700 years. And I was like, if they can live that long, why can't we? And I remember just really saying, it's either going to be a hardware problem or a software problem we're going to crack. And so, I won't give the exact number, but let me just say I set a goal of a multi-100-year lifespan. And the reality is, if we're able to make it over the next 30 years, the technology coming our way from quantum chemistry and AI and really understanding why and how the body ages, you're living long enough to live forever. And I think that is massively interesting. So yeah, Will, I sent you the list of all the supplements that I take, as well as David Sinclair and the other longevity scientists on the trip. So feel free to circulate that document.
Thanks, Peter. That's very, very generous of you, my friend. I appreciate it. It's changed my regimen pretty significantly. And also just my mindset actually around how long I'm going to live to. I'm kind of planning on 120 now, which is, it's very interesting once you start to think about your lifespan in a different way and add a significant percentage to it, how you invest in taking care of your body, how you think about, gaining new skills and continuing to kind of grow and
starting your next company.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Exactly.
does
A long
marriage
time to
really
get a
have
lot
to
done.
last 200? Does marriage have to last 200 years?
That's right. That's right. How about I'm going to do a quick hit list here. So this is something new that we're adding to our firesides here, and just for a chance for people to kind of get to know you a little bit better. So what's the best film or series you watched during the pandemic?
Great. So I loved on Apple TV. Oh man, I just blanked on the name. It's the one where the Russians land on the moon first, beside in the U.S. Anybody know remember that series? Um, for All Mankind, I think it's called.
For All Mankind. Okay.
Yeah, that was awesome. I'm a space cadet, so that was definitely fun.
I love it. How about the most recent book you read that had a real impact on you?
So I do my book reading by Audible, and let me go ahead and look at my Audible library here. I read Breath by James Nestor that I enjoyed. I just did a webinar with him. Karma by Sadhguru. So Inner Engineering and Karma by Sadhguru I find absolutely fantastic. I do a lot of science fiction. Before I get to science fiction, Kai-Fu Lee, who I know you know, Will.
Yeah.
AI 2041. That was great. And then one of my favorite science fiction books by Andy Weir, who wrote The Martian, was Project Hail Mary. I just thought it was great science. A beautiful, beautiful book.
I haven't read that. I'm psyched to check that out.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Project
You will love it. My 10-year-old read it, and we had some amazing conversations.
Super cool. What makes you the most optimistic about the future?
Entrepreneurs. That entrepreneurs are the means that individuals find and solve problems. And the ability for individuals to solve problems is massively increasing, right? There's more capital. The cost of research, building things, right, are massively demonetizing. There are more brains connected on the planet than ever before. So as I like to say, the world's biggest problems, the world's biggest business opportunities, want to become a billionaire, help a billion people. And that convergence is just making the world a better and better place.
How about what makes you most concerned or pessimistic about the future?
I still think innate human biases and the echo chambers that occur, people's beliefs, whether they come from political or religious beliefs that cause division. That's the challenge for me.
And lastly, if you could have dinner with anyone, past or present, who would that be?
Oh, wow. I think I've always been fascinated with the idea of starting a new country. And it becomes more and more difficult to do that on planet Earth without, throwing a revolution. But we're going to be doing it in virtual worlds and off planet. So some of the founding fathers, I think, of America.
Wow.
And just the audacity. What were they thinking? Right. And did they really, how did they believe fully that this was going to happen? And how did they make the decisions early on in the governance of the nation that have held for hundreds of years? So
yeah, it's really incredible. And right, and trying to think through all the different scenarios that could threaten our democracy. And we're going to see how good of a job they did. And I think in the coming decade will be very interesting. Let's thank you for all those questions. Super interesting and cool to get to know you a little bit better and hear some of your insights. A360, Abundance 360, coming up, I think in April. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, we shifted the dates from the first 3 days of February to end of April, 19 through the 22nd. And one of the things I realize is that our mindset, if you ask the question, what made, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos successful? Was it their capital? Was it their access to technology? I would posit it's their mindset. And very few of us ever take time to consider what mindsets we want. And so I've created this program. It's a year-round executive program. We spend 3 days together in Beverly Hills, and then there are these 5 implementation workshops. My mission is helping people shape their mindsets about how they see scarcity versus abundance, exponential growth versus linear growth. How do you get increasing evidence of longevity? How do you refine your massive transformative purpose and then pick moonshots? And for me, that's the most important thing, inspiring people to go bigger and impact the world.
Yeah, it's really, it's been an important part of my life and something that I've loved being part of. I've met some amazing people, but like everything you do, you just bring extraordinary speakers and your own insight to the events.
And if folks are interested, you can, I have one email. It's peter@xprize.org, or awesome. Reach out to Will.
Yeah. And really, just to hammer on your point, mindset is everything. And that has been probably one of the biggest game changers for me, getting to work with you and kind of getting to re-expand my mindset, how I think about the world, what's possible, how I think about myself and what I'm possible of. And for that, I am incredibly grateful, my friend. So thank you for all that you're doing. Thank you for the outsized impact you're having on the world to move us forward. And thank you for being part of our talk today, Peter.
My pleasure, Will. I'm a fan of what you've built with KittyHawk and of you, and you know that. And I'm always here to support you in the way I can.
Thank you, my friend. And thank you to all of you for joining us today. Have a great day.
Bye now.